Pregnant wife discovers her billionaire husband's affair while visiting him at the gym. Rain pecks at the floor-to-ceiling windows of a lavish penthouse overlooking Fifth Avenue, setting a moody stage for a secret about to detonate one woman's reality. She's pregnant, glowing with the promise of motherhood and still drunk on the fairy tale notion that her billionaire husband adores her beyond measure. But a single spontaneous decision to visit him at his upscale Equinox gym uncovers a web of lies that shatters her illusions. Betrayal at the hands of the one person she trusted most ignites a firestorm of heartbreak, vengeance, and, ultimately, hard karma. This gripping account will challenge every definition of loyalty and love. Elena Lee Winters Montefiore Westwood often felt she'd stepped straight into a modern-day fairy tale. Raised in a middle-class suburb of Chicago, she'd grown up valuing honest work, family dinners around a rickety wooden table, and fleeting treats like Saturday matinees at the local cinema. Dreams of a grand life swirled in her imagination, but she always figured they would remain just that, dreams. Then, Maximilian Westwood charged into her life. From the moment Elena met Maximilian at a charity fundraiser for UNICEF in Manhattan, a gala she attended only because her dear friend had an extra ticket, her life accelerated beyond comprehension. Maximilian, lean and confident in a midnight blue tuxedo, introduced himself with a directness that startled her. Unlike the usual snobby crowd that filled these events, he came across as genuinely interested in her opinions on global issues and social inequality. Over wine and laughter, they discovered a mutual devotion to philanthropic causes. He told her about his newest initiative through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, a partnership he was co-sponsoring for educational reforms in underserved nations. Something in Elena lit up at his sincerity. At least, that's what it seemed to be. Maximilian was the oldest son of a generational New York City family, known for their colossal real estate holdings and controlling shares in Westwood Capital. Though his lineage dripped with prestige, Gilded Age ties, donations to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a name etched on hospital wings, he possessed a magnetism that felt more personal than pompous. He wasn't exactly humble, but he had a knack for making Elena feel as though she were the only person in the room. Some called it charm. Elena believed it was genuine passion. One whirlwind year after that fateful gala, they were married. Their ceremony, held at the Pierre Hotel, was a sumptuous affair, brimming with Manhattan's elite. Celebrities, CEOs, old-money aristocrats all gathered under crystal chandeliers to celebrate the union of a self-made young woman from the Midwest and a bona fide billionaire heir. Elena embraced each congratulatory whisper with equal measures of excitement and disbelief. Right from the start of their marriage, Maximilian presented himself as both unstoppable businessman and doting spouse. He'd whisk Elena away for weekend trips to Saint-Tropez or Aspen, spontaneously gift her rare books when he knew she'd been reading about the author, and even indulge in her philanthropic endeavors, funding a free women's health clinic in Chicago to honor her upbringing. She'd pinch herself sometimes, worried she might wake up from this charmed existence, realizing it was all an illusion. When Elena discovered she was pregnant, her elation soared to unimaginable heights. Maximilian's reaction was equally triumphant, pulling her into a joyous embrace that nearly knocked her off her feet. They hosted a chic soirée at a private lounge in the Carlisle Hotel to announce the pregnancy to close friends and family. Soft piano music played in the background as they toasted with Elena's sparkling cider and Maximilian's $2 bottle of vintage champagne. Afterward, under the dim glow of city lights, he kissed her forehead and promised that nothing would ever come between them. Yet happiness can be fragile. Rumors, so subtle at first, began creeping into Elena's awareness. A mutual acquaintance asked if she and Maximilian were doing all right, hinting that he'd seen Maximilian dining with a mysterious brunette. An offhand remark at a charity dinner suggested Maximilian spent more evenings away from home than before. But Elena's faith in him was unshakable, or so she thought. She brushed away the rumors, attributing them to the city's love for gossip, yet seeds of doubt took root. The final blow to her illusions came one chilly morning in autumn. She decided to surprise him at his Equinox gym on East 74th Street. Maximilian had, in recent weeks, praised a new trainer and boasted about the physical transformation he was undergoing. Excited to see him in this environment, Elena hopped into a chauffeured car with a plan: watch him train, have a smoothie together, and share the latest ultrasound pictures of their baby. Nothing seemed more natural after all. They were married and having a child. Why wouldn't she show up unannounced? Stepping into the sleek Equinox lobby, she noted the polished marble floors, gleaming overhead lights, and the faint smell of eucalyptus drifting from the spa area. These were the sorts of luxuries she'd grown accustomed to since marrying Maximilian. She approached the front desk, requesting to see her husband. The receptionist, though courteous, revealed that Mr. Westwood hadn't checked in for his scheduled session. Confusion prickled Elena. She moved from the weight room to the cardio section, scanning every corner for Maximilian's tall frame or that signature confident stance. And then, behind a row of gleaming treadmills, she spotted him. Relief rushed in until she noticed he wasn't alone. A slender woman with flowing dark hair laughed beside him. Elena froze. It took her a moment to process what she was seeing, not just conversation, but intimacy. The woman's hand grazed his back, and then, with horrifying clarity, Elena watched as Maximilian leaned in for a kiss. Everything around Elena warped, the cacophony of machines and chatter dissolving into a dull roar. Time slowed. She blinked, trying to convince herself she'd misread the situation. But there was no misreading a kiss that blatant. It was the most devastating betrayal she had ever witnessed, and it shattered her heart in an instant. Elena left the gym in a daze, every step heavy, as though she trudged through quicksand. She felt nauseous. The realization that Maximilian had lied to her, especially while she was pregnant, stole all the air from her lungs. She kept replaying the image, his hand on the small of that woman's back, the gentle tilt of his head as he moved in for the kiss. She didn't even recall entering her waiting car or instructing the driver to take her home. She arrived at their penthouse, perched high above Fifth Avenue, still reeling. In the foyer, the house staff greeted her warmly, but she couldn't summon a response. Her mind churned with questions she wasn't ready to answer. Had Maximilian been seeing this woman for months? Was this a one-time indiscretion? Why had he bothered to talk about transformation at the gym if it wasn't about physical fitness at all? Fatigue overwhelmed her. She retreated to the master bedroom and sank onto the velvet, upholstered chaise lounge, heart pounding as she tried to breathe. Placing a hand on her abdomen, she whispered a shaky apology to the tiny life growing within her. This was supposed to be a safe space for their child. How could Maximilian betray them both so callously? For the next few hours, Elena remained locked inside the bedroom, ignoring calls from friends. She stared at the extravagant decor, a crystal chandelier, imported Italian drapes, a designer dresser, and felt a wave of revulsion. These symbols of wealth had once enchanted her. Now they seemed hollow, mocking illusions. Money couldn't buy loyalty. Money couldn't buy an honest heart. Late that night, she heard Maximilian's footsteps approaching, her pulse hammered. She'd planned to confront him the moment he walked in, but when she saw him enter the bedroom, coat draped over his arm, the words caught in her throat. He exuded his usual effortless confidence, tossing her a cursory smile as though nothing had happened. "Elena, you're still awake," he said, voice smooth. "Everything all right?" She stared at him, forcing herself not to scream. "Where were you?" she managed to ask, tone taut. He gave a practiced shrug. "I had a meeting downtown. It ran late. Then I hit the gym, but decided to leave early, not feeling it today." Fury ignited inside her. How easily he lied, with no trace of guilt in his eyes. She turned away, afraid that if she pushed too soon, she might collapse from the emotional onslaught. She didn't want to risk the well-being of her unborn baby. "I'm tired," she said, pressing her lips together. "We'll talk tomorrow." Maximilian hesitated, eyeing her quizzically, but then nodded. "Sure, I'll shower and head to bed." He moved through the suite, rummaging in the closet for pajamas, humming under his breath. Elena watched him from the corner of her eye, astonished at how effortlessly he behaved, as though nothing unusual had happened that day. Was this the skill of a man used to hiding secrets, or did he genuinely believe his affair was well concealed? In bed, she lay rigid, trying to feign sleep. When Maximilian joined her, the mattress dipped under his weight. She could smell his cologne, that subtle cedarwood she once found irresistible. But now it set her nerves on edge. She felt him reach out, perhaps to place a hand on her belly, but she shifted away, heart pounding. Within minutes, he was asleep, breathing softly, utterly at peace. Elena, on the other hand, stared at the chandelier's reflection, dancing across the ceiling. Her future had begun to unravel. She had to decide how to confront him, how to protect herself and her baby. She felt a surge of nausea and slipped out of bed to pace the living room. She realized, with a heavy heart, that her next moves would define the rest of her life. The next morning, Elena woke up early, having barely slept. She dressed hastily, comfortable leggings and a soft sweater that accommodated her blossoming baby bump, then slipped out before Maximilian stirred. She needed clarity, and she suspected it wouldn't come from within the walls of that penthouse. On her drive downtown, she decided to contact Isabel Trenton, an old college friend now living in Los Angeles. Though they mostly kept in touch through voice notes and social media, Isabel was the kind of person who dispensed frank advice without judgment. Elena dialed her number, breath trembling. "Elena," Isabel's chirpy voice answered. "It's a bit early in LA, but for you, I'm always free. You okay?" The question sparked tears Elena fought to hold back. "No, I'm not," she admitted. "1. I think Maximilian is cheating on me." A shocked silence stretched. Then Isabel softly asked, "You're sure?" Elena described stumbling upon him at the gym, the hush that enveloped them, the kiss. There was no mistaking the intimacy she'd witnessed. "That's not a misunderstanding," Isabel said gravely. "I'm so sorry. I'm speechless." The words poured out of Elena in a broken torrent, her fear for the baby, her sense of betrayal, the swirl of confusion in her heart. Isabel listened, occasionally interjecting with words of comfort. By the time Elena found a place to park near her old yoga studio in Soho, she felt marginally calmer. "I think you need professional guidance," Isabel advised. "Marriage counseling if you're open to that, or even a lawyer if you suspect deeper deception. You know how these wealthy families can be with their hush-hush tactics." Elena hated the idea of stepping into a legal battlefield, but she also recognized she had to protect herself and her child. "I'll think about it," she said. After hanging up, she entered the yoga studio, a small private place that she used to frequent before marriage, back when she was just Elena Lee Winters. The studio's founder, Ingrid, recognized her immediately and welcomed her with a gentle hug. Sensing Elena's fragile state, Ingrid guided her to a free prenatal yoga session. For an hour, Elena tried to lose herself in stretches and mindful breathing, but her mind kept looping back to Maximilian's infidelity and the swirl of possible consequences. She imagined a scenario where she confronted him, demanded an explanation, and he apologized profusely, maybe even ended it instantly. But a deep skepticism gnawed at her, as though she already knew he'd weave a tapestry of excuses. She also feared how the stress might affect her baby. The child she carried deserved a stable environment, free from the rancor of adult betrayal. After leaving the studio, Elena found herself drawn to a small legal office across the street. The gold plaque on the building read, "Law Offices of Christine Caldwell Family Law and Estate Planning." She remembered seeing Christine Caldwell's name in society pages. Caldwell had represented a few high-profile divorces in recent years. Elena's heartbeat quickened as she stepped inside. The reception area was minimalist, with neutral-colored walls and a vase of fresh tulips on the front desk. A composed, middle-aged woman introduced herself as Christine Caldwell. She guided Elena to a private office, glass walls tinted for confidentiality. Christine exuded poise, sharp eyes, impeccable navy suit, a calm that comes from years of navigating emotional minefields. Elena hesitated, her throat tight, but then poured out her situation, discovering Maximilian's affair, her pregnancy, and her uncertainty about how to proceed. Christine listened with unwavering attention, occasionally noting details on a yellow legal pad. "How tied are you financially to your husband?" Christine asked, gently. Elena shrugged, uneasy with the question. We have a joint account for daily expenses. He manages our investments, but I have no reason to suspect anything shady. Or at least I didn't before this." Christine pressed her fingertips together. Men with vast wealth and complicated business interests often have multiple layers in their finances. It might be wise to ensure you have a safety net, especially since you're expecting. If his infidelity escalates, you need a secure financial position. The conversation made Elena's stomach churn. She'd never imagined planning an escape route or worrying about hidden assets. Yet hearing Christine's straightforward tone made it clear that ignoring reality could spell disaster. "You're saying I should gather evidence before confronting him?" Elena asked, uncertain how she felt about such a covert approach. Christine sighed. "I'm suggesting you protect yourself. Emotional confrontation can provoke unpredictable responses, especially when significant wealth is at stake. Infidelity is often just the tip of the iceberg." Elena left the office with a swirling mind and a heavy heart. She felt almost unfaithful to Maximilian simply by seeking legal counsel, but heartbreak and fear nudged her forward. If nothing else, she had taken a step towards safeguarding herself. She was no longer naive. She was a woman on the precipice of a fight she never asked for. When Elena returned to the penthouse that evening, Maximilian was perched in the living room with a glass of brandy, reading through documents on his tablet. He looked up at her with a warm smile that made her stomach churn. There was something nauseating about the way he feigned normalcy. "You were out all day," he said, setting the tablet aside. "Everything okay?" She dropped her coat onto a nearby chair, returning his gaze with forced composure. "I had yoga. Some errands," she replied, voice tight. "How was your day?" He shrugged. "Busy. Had a working lunch with an investor, then some calls with Singapore." The mention of Singapore reminded Elena of the big foreign investment project that supposedly demanded much of his time. "I was thinking we could order from Cipriani tonight. Maybe watch a movie?" Her heart twisted. He was inviting her to share an evening of relaxation, as if there wasn't a scandalous secret lurking in the background. "I'm not really hungry," she said curtly. He stood, crossing the room to place a hand on her shoulder. "You need to eat for the baby, Elena. You've seemed so stressed these past few days. Is the pregnancy wearing you down?" She pulled away, tears threatening to surface. Yes, it is stressful. I need some air. Without waiting for a response, she strode onto the balcony. A cold gust of wind whipped her hair across her face, but she welcomed the sting it grounded her. Moments later, she heard Maximilian's footsteps behind her. He placed a light hand on her arm, but she refused to turn around. She stared at the city skyline, lights twinkling like distant stars. They stood in heavy silence before he finally spoke. "Elena, talk to me," he murmured, voice uncharacteristically tender. "You've been so distant. If there's something bothering you, don't patronize me," she spat, voice trembling with anger. Slowly, she turned to face him, tears shining in her eyes. "I went to Equinox yesterday." She watched his expression shift from concern to shock, then quickly smooth over into what might have been practiced neutrality. "Equinox," he echoed. She took a trembling breath. "I saw you with that woman. I saw you kissing her." His mouth opened, closed, and then opened again. "Elena, listen." "No," she cut him off, pressing a hand to her chest as though to contain her heart before it shattered all over again. "You don't get to spin this. I saw it with my own eyes. My question is, why? And how long?" He inhaled, glancing away. The seconds stretched, suffocating them both. Finally, he whispered, "It's not what you think." She couldn't bear to hear more cliches. "Stop lying. I watched you. Did you think I'd remain oblivious forever? That the pregnant wife wouldn't notice your secret?" Maximilian's shoulders sagged, and for a moment, genuine remorse flickered in his eyes. "Elena, I swear, I never wanted to hurt you." A bitter laugh escaped her lips. "Well, you did. And you risked our child's stability in the process." "Who is she?" he sighed, looking defeated. "Her name is Clara Simone Barrett. She's a consultant who helped me with a recent project in Los Angeles. Things got personal, and I messed up." Elena's hands shook. "Messed up? You call an affair messing up? Why would you do this?" His gaze locked onto the floor. "There's no excuse. I was stressed, and we'd been drifting. Don't you dare blame me or the pregnancy for your affair," she hissed, a fresh wave of anger surging through her. "We could have gone to therapy, or you could have talked to me, but you chose betrayal instead." He tried to reach for her hand, but she jerked away. "Elena, please," he pleaded, voice cracking. "It's over. It meant nothing. I promised to cut off contact with her immediately. I love you. I love our baby." She studied him, remembering the day they vowed to love each other in sickness and in health, in adversity and prosperity. The sincerity she saw in his eyes now was suspiciously late. "How can I believe you?" she asked, tears burning down her cheeks. "You've lied so easily before." "What if this is just another performance?" Maximilian looked stricken. "I'm begging you. Let me prove it. I'll end things with Clara tonight. I'll transfer her off any projects. I'll show you the communication logs, whatever it takes." Elena's mind spun. Part of her wanted to believe that it was just a fleeting mistake, that they could fix it for the sake of their unborn child. Another part, the one that recalled the casual intimacy she witnessed, felt hollow. Deception rarely exists in a vacuum. Could she trust him again? "I need time," she whispered. "And you need to do more than just say you'll end it. I'm pregnant, Maximilian. I'm not about to endure more pain because you couldn't keep your promises." He nodded vigorously, hope igniting in his eyes. "Anything. Just say the word." Elena closed her eyes, letting the wind whip around them. "I want you to move to the guest bedroom," she said, her voice trembling. "Prove to me day by day that this is over, that you're done lying. Only then might I consider letting you back into my life." He hesitated, probably surprised by the ultimatum, but then gave a resigned nod. "Whatever it takes." They stood there in silence, the city's neon glow painting them in harsh hues. Elena realized that her perfect life had cracked wide open. She also knew that trusting Maximilian's words would be like walking a tightrope over an abyss. But for the moment, she needed the illusion of control, a way to manage the storm raging inside her. And so she turned her back on him, returning indoors without another word, leaving him alone on the balcony where cold gusts carried away whatever was left of his half-hearted confessions. In the days that followed, Maximilian maintained a careful distance, as instructed. He occupied the guest bedroom, a luxurious space typically reserved for out-of-town friends or associates. Elena, meanwhile, tried to continue with her routine prenatal appointments, phone calls with her mother in Chicago, and philanthropic planning for an upcoming fundraiser supporting women's health. Despite wanting to lock herself away, Elena forced herself to attend social functions. She refused to let the rumor mill paint her as a recluse. She had already heard subtle whispers about Maximilian's busy schedule and her own fragile condition. Perhaps some people suspected an affair. Yet in the circles of Manhattan's elite, whispered speculation rarely translated to outright confrontation, at least not until some sensational drama exploded in the tabloids. One afternoon, Elena decided to meet an acquaintance, Lillian Chambers, for lunch at the iconic restaurant Le Bernardin. Lillian was a bright and well-connected socialite, known for her philanthropic endeavors in mental health and her unfiltered honesty in private conversation. If there was any truth to the rumor swirling around Maximilian, Lillian might know. Dressed in a fitted maternity dress, Elena arrived at Le Bernardin's chic dining room. Lillian welcomed her with an air kiss and a warm smile, guiding her to a table near the window. They ordered, exchanging pleasantries about the upcoming fundraiser. Lillian inquired politely about Elena's pregnancy, congratulating her on the baby's healthy progress. But as their entrees arrived, Lillian's gaze turned serious. "Elena, are you all right?" she asked, concern etched on her features. "I've noticed a change in your energy lately." Elena shifted uncomfortably. She toyed with her fork, weighing how much to divulge. "I've been dealing with personal stress," she finally admitted. Lillian sighed. "I figured as much. People have been whispering that Maximilian's been spending unusual hours away from home." She paused delicately. "I didn't want to pry, but if there's anything I can do..." Tears threatened to form, but Elena willed them away. "We're working through it." Lillian reached across the table, giving Elena's hand a gentle squeeze. "You deserve the best, you know. If Maximilian can't see that, it's on him." Elena murmured a thank you, trying to remain composed. For the rest of the lunch, they steered the conversation toward safer topics, charity events, European vacations, Lillian's latest philanthropic partnership with the Real Madrid Foundation. Still, Elena sensed Lillian's empathetic concern hovering. Back at the penthouse later that evening, Elena found Maximilian pacing in the living room, phone pressed to his ear. The moment she walked in, he signaled for the person on the other end to hold on, then addressed her in hushed tones. "Elena," he said, covering the phone mic, "Clara wants to meet in person. She's causing trouble, sending me threatening texts. I can't just ignore her." A chill gripped Elena. "Threatening in what way?" "She's furious that I ended things so abruptly," Maximilian explained. "I told her it was a mistake and that I have to focus on my wife and child. She claims she has some personal information that could embarrass me or you. She might leak it to the press." Elena's heart pounded. "So what do you plan to do?" he grimaced, returning to the call. "Look, I'll meet her once to ensure she doesn't drag you into this. I'll text you the details tomorrow," he said into the phone, then ended the call abruptly. Elena folded her arms. "You understand how risky this is. If she's unstable, I know," he interjected. "But it's better I handle it before she tries to contact you or shows up at one of your events." Elena's mind whirled. The last thing she needed was a confrontation with Clara. The stress alone could be harmful to her pregnancy. However, letting Maximilian secretly meet his mistress again, under the pretext of damage control, felt like reopening a wound. As if reading her thoughts, Maximilian said, "I'll do whatever it takes to keep you out of this. Trust me." The irony of those words, "trust me," nearly made Elena scoff. But she swallowed her cynicism, offering a terse nod instead. "Fine," she conceded. "But don't lie to me about this meeting. If you want to fix any part of our marriage, you need to be transparent." "Understood?" Maximilian nodded. "Understood." That night, Elena lingered in the master bedroom, alone with her thoughts, while he retreated to the guest suite. She paced the plush rug, grappling with whether to hire a private investigator or to believe Maximilian's vow of honesty. Christine Caldwell's warning echoed in her mind. Infidelity can be the tip of a much larger iceberg. What else might he be hiding? She sat at her vanity, gazing at the reflection of a woman she hardly recognized. Eyes weary, mouth set in a grim line, she placed a hand over her baby bump. "I will protect you," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks, "no matter what I have to do." The following day brought a sense of foreboding. Maximilian left early in the morning, after informing Elena he was heading to a private cafe to meet Clara. He offered no further details, and Elena didn't ask. Instead, she called a number Christine Caldwell had discreetly provided, Jacob Barnes, a private investigator known for his impeccable track record in high-profile cases. After a brief phone consultation, Elena agreed to meet Jacob at a quiet diner in the West Village. She chose an inconspicuous outfit: jeans, a flowy blouse, and a simple coat. It felt oddly liberating to blend in, free from the usual glamour that her life with Maximilian often required. Jacob Barnes was a solidly built man in his 50s, with greying hair and sharp, observant eyes. He rose from his booth when Elena entered, greeting her politely. She slid into the seat across from him, heart pounding. "Miss S. Westwood," he said, his voice even. "I understand you have concerns about your husband's fidelity and, potentially, his business dealings." Elena swallowed hard. "That's correct. I discovered he's having an affair with a woman named Clara Barrett. But I suspect there could be deeper secrets. I need to know if he's hiding assets, using our joint funds inappropriately, or if there's anything else I should be aware of, particularly regarding my unborn child's future." Jacob nodded, taking a notepad from his jacket pocket. "I specialize in discreet investigations. If your husband is hiding something financial or otherwise, I'll find it." She felt both relief and guilt at the idea of spying on Maximilian, but she reminded herself that her priority was the baby's security. If Maximilian was funneling money or engaged in something nefarious, she needed to know. They discussed logistics. Jacob would follow Maximilian, track financial records, and gather proof of any wrongdoing. He assured Elena that he could operate under the radar, leaving no trace of her involvement. She left the diner feeling a mix of dread and empowerment. Dread that she might discover even more devastating truths, and empowerment in taking control of her destiny. Later that evening, Maximilian returned home, looking tense. He loosened his tie in the foyer and caught sight of Elena reading on the living room couch. She kept her face neutral as he approached. "How did your meeting go?" she asked, snapping the book shut. He rubbed the back of his neck. "It was complicated. Clara threatened to go to the tabloids if I didn't compensate her for," he paused, grimacing, "the abrupt ending of our relationship. She wants a sum of money, or she'll spin a story about me, about us. I told her that blackmail wouldn't work." Elena's jaw clenched. "And how did she react?" He flopped onto an armchair, eyes clouded. "She stormed off, but I think she might be bluffing. She has no proof we had a full-blown affair, just texts and private photos." but the tabloids would pay handsomely for that. A cold horror spread through Elena. "Private photos?" He nodded, looking embarrassed. "Nothing explicit, but enough to create a scandal. I regret ever letting it get that far." She sat in silence, absorbing his words. Clara was obviously no mere fling. This was a deeply entangled situation, complete with potential blackmail. Suddenly, the woman in the gym who looked so confident kissing Maximilian felt more dangerous than Elena had imagined. "What do you plan to do?" Elena finally asked. Maximilian exhaled. "I spoke to a crisis management consultant. They advised me to pay her off quietly, or it might escalate. But I hate the idea of giving in to her demands. I'm not sure which path is safer legally or morally." Elena almost laughed at the mention of morality. "Maybe you should have considered morals earlier," she said, biting back more acidic words. A flicker of regret crossed his eyes. "You're right. I'm sorry, truly." He sounded sincere, but Elena's heart remained stone. "This is your mess to fix," she said. "But remember, if you let it threaten me or our child, I'll never forgive you." He nodded, his expression resolute. "I understand." They left it at that. Over the next few days, Elena watched Maximilian hustle through phone calls, hush meetings, and lawyer consultations. The guest bedroom remained his residence, a silent reminder of the chasm between them. In the midst of the chaos, Elena continued with her prenatal care. Her obstetrician commented that her stress levels seemed high, urging her to practice self-care and rest. She tried. She scheduled massages, listened to soothing music, took gentle walks in Central Park. Yet her mind constantly returned to the question, what if paying off Clara was only the beginning? If Maximilian was easily manipulated once, what was to stop further demands? And what if there were other secrets he had yet to reveal? One evening, while Maximilian was out meeting with the crisis team, Elena's phone buzzed. It was Jacob Barnes. "Miss S. Westwood," he began, voice calm. "I thought you should know that your husband's finances are more complex than they appear. I've traced a few suspicious transfers to an LLC registered in Delaware, then funneled through a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. I'm looking deeper, but it appears he might be sheltering funds beyond your shared assets." Elena's blood ran cold. "Are you saying he's hiding money from me or from the government?" "Unclear. It could be both. There's also a sizable sum recently withdrawn in cash, possibly for hush money. I'll continue investigating, but you should be prepared." The conversation left Elena shaking. Christine Caldwell's warning rang in her ears. Infidelity might be only the surface of Maximilian's deceit. This could become a legal and moral nightmare. She looked around the opulent penthouse, the very picture of luxury, and felt a rising panic. If Maximilian was involved in shady financial dealings, how long until authorities came knocking? The unborn child within her moved, a soft reminder of her deepest responsibility. That night, she barely slept. She decided, then and there, that if Maximilian was dragging her into illegal territory, she had to protect herself legally, financially, and emotionally. She placed a protective hand on her belly, silently vowing to shield her baby from whatever storm might come. The following week unfolded with nerve-wracking intensity. Maximilian tried to maintain an appearance of normalcy, shuttling between high-stakes business meetings at Westwood Capital, crossing paths with investors, and hosting a philanthropic gala for an education fund. At the same time, Elena sensed his tension crackling through every conversation. He rarely ate a full meal, snapped at staff over minor issues, and spent late nights locked in his study, presumably trying to douse the fires sparked by Clara. Meanwhile, Jacob Barnes continued quietly compiling information. His messages to Elena hinted at a more extensive web of hidden transactions. Shell companies, suspicious partnerships in Southeast Asia, and new rumors swirling about Maximilian possibly bribing local officials to expand Westwood Capital's footprint. The more Elena learned, the more she realized her husband's empire might be built on dangerous foundations. One late afternoon, Elena returned from a prenatal checkup to find Maximilian speaking in hushed tones on a phone call. He was in the living room, back turned, posture rigid. When he noticed her, he ended the call abruptly. She caught a glimpse of dread in his eyes, an unspoken fear that told her something dire was unfolding. "What is it?" she asked, setting her handbag down. He raked a hand through his hair. "Some reporter from the Wall Street Journal is sniffing around the Singapore deal. They might run a story about corruption allegations, or at least imply it." Her stomach clenched. "Is any of it true?" He paused, hesitating. "I don't know. Westwood Capital invests in many projects globally. If my subordinates cut corners, it could look bad. But the reporter's angle is that I personally sanctioned bribes to gain an advantage, which I never did." Elena studied him. "Did you even bother to check if your executives were doing something illegal? Or were you too busy with your mistress to care?" He flinched, guilt and frustration flickering across his face. "That's not fair." Her temper flared. "Fair? You want to talk about fair after you betrayed me and lied about everything? If your lack of oversight opened the door for shady dealings, that's on you." Maximilian sank into a chair, shoulders slumping. "I'm trying to fix it, but it's spiraling. Even if I'm innocent of bribery, the mere suggestion could tank our stock, ruin our reputation." Elena crossed her arms, heart pounding. "Then come clean transparently. Conduct an internal investigation or step aside until the matter is resolved. If you're telling the truth, that might salvage some trust." He looked at her, voice subdued. "Stepping aside would be seen as an admission of guilt. My father built Westwood Capital. If I step down, the board might force me out." For the briefest moment, Elena felt a flash of compassion. Maximilian wasn't just a philandering billionaire. He was the caretaker of a family legacy. But then she remembered how easily he lied. She stepped back, her gaze hardening. "Your choice. Either do the right thing or risk everything, but don't drag me and our child through the mud with you." He exhaled a shaky breath, eyes glistening with regret. "I never intended for any of this to happen. I just wanted to make my mark on the world, and yes, I made mistakes, but I love you, Elena. I love our baby." She refused to soften. "If you truly love us, prove it by taking responsibility. No more secrets." With that, she marched to the bedroom, heart pounding. How many more secrets lay buried in Maximilian's past or business dealings? The mere thought of an investigative article splashing across national headlines made her nauseous. She sat at her dressing table, staring into her reflection, wondering how one impulsive kiss in a gym had led them to the brink of a scandal that could destroy their entire future. Elena decided to confide the latest developments to Christine Caldwell. They met at Christine's office, where the lawyer listened gravely as Elena described the corruption rumors, the hush money to Clara, and the looming threat of negative press. "It sounds like Westwood Capital could be facing serious legal scrutiny," Christine remarked. "You need to protect yourself financially and legally, especially if Maximilian is indicted or if the SEC opens an investigation into the company's practices." Elena's hands trembled. "Do you think I should leave him?" Christine leaned back in her chair. "That's a deeply personal decision. My role is to ensure you have options. But if you suspect more lies or potential illegal activity, staying could compromise your future and your baby's stability." Elena swallowed hard, feeling cornered by a life she once thought was a dream. Christine then handed her a folder. "This is a separation agreement," the lawyer explained. "It's not a divorce filing. It merely outlines custody terms for the child, financial support, and property division if you choose to separate." You can hold on to it as leverage or an emergency fallback. Elena took the folder, the weight of the documents in her hands, symbolic of a possible new life. She left, eyes stinging with tears. She recalled how, just months ago, she and Maximilian had been excitedly flipping through baby name books, teasing each other with suggestions for boy and girl. Now the possibility that she might raise the child alone loomed large. Returning to the penthouse, she found Maximilian in his study, scowling at spreadsheets on his large monitor. She lingered at the threshold, uncertain whether to speak. He eventually noticed her, motioning her in. "Elena," he said, removing his reading glasses, "I need to tell you something." Her pulse quickened. "I'm listening. There's an internal memo from a whistleblower in the Singapore division. They claim top executives bribed local officials, and I either knew or turned a blind eye. If that memo goes public, the authorities will come knocking. The board is freaking out. Our lawyers suggest I take a leave of absence." She sank into a chair, the folder from Christine still clutched in her hands. "So it's that serious?" He nodded, staring into space. "I didn't authorize bribes, but if they have documentation linking me indirectly, an email, a phone log, I could be implicated. And in the court of public opinion, I'm already guilty, because I'm the CEO." Elena looked at him for a long moment, searching for any sign of sincerity. "What are you going to do?" A resigned look crossed his face. "I'm considering stepping down temporarily. It might limit the damage to the company and buy time for an investigation to clear my name." Some small part of her softened at this sign of accountability, yet a swirl of resentment remained. "What about Clara? Has she backed off?" He grimaced. "She's still threatening to leak our affair, but the bigger concern is this bribery scandal now. I might have to pay her off just to avoid another media firestorm." Elena set her jaw. "You mean hush money?" Her tone was flat. "So you're prepared to sink even deeper into this moral swamp?" His eyes flashed with indignation. "You think I want this? I'm stuck dealing with the consequences of my mistakes. I'm trying to keep the family business afloat. Don't you understand the pressure I'm under?" She stiffened. "Don't lecture me about pressure. I'm pregnant, dealing with a cheating husband who may have led me into a financial and legal nightmare. That's pressure." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence hung heavy, bristling with unspoken turmoil. Then Elena sighed, holding up the folder. Christine Caldwell suggested, "I keep this in case I need to separate. It's not a final step, but it's an option if I feel our marriage and my baby's welfare is at risk." Maximilian's face paled. "You're drawing up separation papers?" Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. "I don't want to, but I have to protect our child. If the SEC or FBI investigates and everything goes under, what happens to me and the baby?" He rose, crossing the room to kneel before her chair, eyes glassy. "Elena, I don't want to lose you. I love you. Please, just give me a chance to fix this." His plea tugged at her heart. She stroked her belly, feeling the baby stir. "You have a chance, Maximilian, but it's the last one." Their gazes locked, a flood of complicated emotion charging the air. Here they were, a once powerful couple now dangling on the edge of destruction. And in Elena's heart, a single prayer rose that the child within her might have a future untainted by the sins of the father. Within a week, tabloids and business papers alike were aflame with gossip. The Wall Street Journal ran a piece titled "Dark Clouds Over Westwood Capital," hinting at corruption allegations tied to a highly publicized deal in Singapore. The story stopped short of accusing Maximilian outright, but the insinuation was enough to rattle investors. Stock prices tumbled. The Westwood Capital Board convened an emergency session, demanding swift action. Simultaneously, a notorious gossip site published blurry photos of Maximilian and Clara leaving Equinox, arms entwined. Though they lacked the explicit kiss Elena had witnessed, the images were incriminating enough. The site claimed an anonymous source, confirmed an ongoing affair, stoking public fascination with a narrative of billionaire scandal. Elena woke up one morning to find paparazzi camped outside the penthouse. Camera flashes erupted as soon as she stepped near the floor-to-ceiling windows. She quickly withdrew, dread coursing through her. She refused to be a spectacle, especially now that her pregnancy was so visible. Maximilian spiraled into damage control mode, frantically coordinating with PR teams, lawyers, and private investigators. He eventually held a press conference to announce he was taking a leave of absence as CEO to clear his name. The statement was accompanied by assurances that the company's operations would continue as usual under interim leadership. Nonetheless, the public smelled blood. Inside the penthouse, the tension soared. Staff grew jumpy, half expecting the building to be swarmed by reporters or even law enforcement. Elena received multiple calls from well-meaning acquaintances, offering sympathy for her stressful pregnancy situation. She sensed the pity in their voices, and it grated on her nerves. Every day, she considered handing Maximilian the separation agreement. Yet each time, something stopped her, maybe a faint hope that he could redeem himself, or a fear that fracturing her life further would harm the baby. One afternoon, her phone rang. Jacob Barnes. "Mrs. Westwood," he began, measured and calm as ever. "I've uncovered more details. Your husband appears to have transferred substantial sums into an offshore account about 3 weeks ago, nearly $500,000. It corresponds to the timeline of hush money to Miss Barrett." Elena's cheeks warmed with anger. "So he paid her off." "It looks that way," Jacob confirmed. "Additionally, I've detected suspicious wire transfers possibly tied to individuals in Singapore. If the authorities discover this, it might be construed as part of the alleged bribery scheme." Fear hollowed Elena's stomach. "He told me he never authorized bribes." "Could these be legitimate business payments?" Jacob paused. "Hard to say. Some are from subsidiaries that appear legitimate. Others are from shell companies. It doesn't necessarily prove wrongdoing, but it's not a good look." Elena sank onto a sofa, pressing a hand to her belly. The child kicked, a small reminder of life amidst the chaos. "Thank you for letting me know," she said, voice subdued. She ended the call and stared into space, feeling more trapped than ever. She was married to a man who was either complicit in or clueless about a labyrinth of murky finances. And now that hush money to Clara had presumably been paid, there was no telling what might come next. Late that evening, Maximilian stumbled into the penthouse, disheveled. He'd been at some crisis strategy meeting all day. The swirl of paparazzi outside was thick, lights flashing in the street. Elena, arms folded, confronted him in the foyer. "You paid her off," she said without preamble. He froze. "You're having me followed?" She shrugged, anger simmering. "Did you think I'd just trust you blindly after all this?" He threw his hands in the air. "I did it to protect us." She demanded money to stay quiet about the affair. "I had no choice." Elena's voice shook. "There's always a choice, Maximilian. Now there's a paper trail of a huge sum leaving your account. The authorities could interpret that as part of the bribery scheme. Have you considered the legal implications for me?" He rubbed his temples, frustration lining his face. "I'm doing what I can to contain everything. People are out for blood, journalists, the board, maybe even the SEC." She felt tears prickle her eyes. "You've put this entire family at risk. I'm carrying your child, and I'm terrified of what might happen if you're arrested or indicted." He stepped closer, desperation etched in his expression. "Elena, please. I'm trying to keep everything from falling apart. Just give me time." "Time," she repeated, voice hollow. "We're running out of it, Maximilian." Their argument hung in the air, an echo of shared pain and shattered trust. He retreated to the guest bedroom while she stood rooted in the foyer, tears finally spilling. She clenched her fists, feeling the baby move in her belly as if echoing her turmoil. The walls of their once dreamy life were collapsing, and there seemed to be no way out. The next few days brought a crescendo of consequences. The SEC announced a preliminary investigation into Westwood Capital's foreign operations. Clara Barrett, furious at not receiving additional payouts, leaked personal details of the affair to a tabloid, complete with suggestive text messages. The story painted Maximilian as a playboy billionaire, ignoring his pregnant wife. Public sentiment turned vicious, and Westwood Capital's stock plummeted further. Amid the chaos, Elena felt a strange calm descend upon her. It happened one morning as she stood in the baby's nursery, running her fingers over the soft edges of a white crib. The room was beautifully decorated pastel walls, plush toys, a small reading nook with children's books stacked neatly. She gazed at this oasis of innocence, remembering a time when she believed Maximilian would be a doting father, kneeling beside that crib, smiling with pride. Now, that future felt impossibly distant. Instead of fixating on betrayal, she decided to finalize her exit plan. She called Christine Caldwell, instructing her to file the separation agreement. She also arranged for a modest townhouse on the Upper East Side, a rental under her own name, funded by the personal account she'd opened months earlier on Christine's advice. By sheer fortune and her own prudent decisions, she had enough resources to sustain herself and the baby. That evening, she summoned Maximilian to the living room. He arrived tense, still wearing the rumpled suit he'd had on since early morning. His eyes flicked to the folder on the coffee table. "Are those?" he began, voice strained. She nodded. "Separation papers. I can't keep living like this, Maximilian. The affair, the hush money, the possible criminal investigations. I won't raise our child in such a volatile environment." He looked stricken, tears brimming in his eyes. "Please, Elena, don't do this." She inhaled a shaky breath. "Do you honestly think we can salvage this marriage? Our trust is gone. You're embroiled in a massive scandal. Even if you're cleared, you lied to me repeatedly." He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for him, this once powerful man reduced to desperation. But then she pictured him with Clara, the stolen kisses, the hush money bribe. She hardened her resolve. "I'll file these tomorrow," she continued, voice trembling. "I'm not seeking vengeance. I just want peace. We can negotiate child support and custody, but I won't stand by while you jeopardize my sanity and our baby's future." He lifted his gaze, a sheen of tears in his eyes. "I still love you," he whispered. "I never stopped loving you, despite my stupidity. Tell me what I can do, how I can fix this." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. "You can't undo what's been done. Perhaps in time we'll find a path to co-parent amicably. But right now, I need space and stability." He nodded, a tortured acceptance passing over his features. "When will you leave?" "Tomorrow," she answered, her voice catching. "A car will take me to the townhouse. Please, don't follow me." His expression shattered, and for a moment he looked as if he might beg or rage. Then something in him deflated. He simply nodded, tears tracing silent paths. True to her word, Elena departed the next morning. She packed her belongings discreetly, clothes, personal documents, cherished photos, the baby items she loved. Paparazzi still loitered outside, but her driver knew a secure underground exit. She left, carrying not just suitcases, but also the unborn baby she vowed to protect with every fiber of her being. In the weeks that followed, the fallout for Maximilian was swift. With his absence, Westwood Capital's leadership tried frantically to pivot. Government inquiries escalated, and rumors persisted that several executives were prepared to cut deals with prosecutors. Clara Barrett gave another interview, painting Maximilian as a manipulative partner who used his influence to keep her quiet. Whether her claims were entirely truthful or exaggerated for profit, the damage to Maximilian's reputation was overwhelming. He soon faced official charges for financial misconduct, though not yet proven. The mere allegations tarnished the Westwood name. Lawyers hustled to arrange bail and minimize prison threats. Meanwhile, Elena remained in her new townhouse, forging a quieter existence. She continued her prenatal care with the same obstetrician, leaning on her mother and close friends for emotional support. Surprisingly, Maximilian didn't contest the separation. Perhaps he recognized the inevitability. Instead, he funneled his energy into legal defense and occasionally sent polite messages asking after her health and the babies. She replied with brief, cordial updates, nothing more. The day Elena went into labor came during a gentle summer rain. Her mother held her hand through every contraction, encouraging her to breathe. The labor was exhausting, but when she finally held her baby girl in her arms, a wave of euphoria and fierce love washed over her. The infant's eyes fluttered open two tiny windows to a future Elena vowed would be free from deception. She named her daughter Aria Lee Winters Westwood, honoring the hopeful melody of life that had carried her through pain. Later, Maximilian arrived at the hospital, subdued and trembling. He hesitated at the door, waiting for permission to enter. Elena glanced at the baby in her arms, then at the man who had once been her entire world. She nodded, allowing him inside. He approached timidly, tears brimming as he saw Aria. "She's perfect," he whispered, voice thick with emotion. Elena's lips curved in a small, sad smile. "She is." They exchanged no words of reconciliation. The nurse politely reminded him visiting hours were nearly over, and Maximilian left with a final glimpse of his daughter. For a moment, Elena watched him go, realizing that this might be the way forward, his role in the child's life uncertain, overshadowed by a scandal of his own making. In the months that followed, Elena finalized the separation, receiving a respectable settlement that ensured she and Aria would be financially secure. She remained open to letting Maximilian meet with their daughter under supervised visits, though she knew trust between them might never be restored. Word on the street was that his legal troubles continued, with no clear resolution in sight. Yet for Elena, a profound sense of relief replaced despair. She found solace in the small joys of motherhood, Aria's first coos, the way her tiny hand grasped Elena's finger, the sweet moments of nighttime lullabies. The tabloids eventually turned their attention elsewhere, leaving Elena and her child in relative peace. Standing by the nursery window one evening, Elena watched Aria sleeping in the soft glow of a nightlight. She smiled, stroking her daughter's silky hair. The city lights twinkled beyond, reminding her of how life had once seemed so glamorous and easy. She reflected on that day at equinox, when the truth of Maximilian's affair cracked her world wide open. Karma had arrived in full force, claiming Maximilian's position, wealth, and reputation. But in the rubble, Elena discovered her own unshakable strength. A gentle wind ruffled the curtains. She placed a hand over her heart, breathing in the serenity of the moment. Maximilian's empire had come crashing down, and the illusions that once held her captive had dissolved. Yet here she stood, resilient, forging a new path for herself and Aria. Yes, the betrayal still stung. Yes, the heartbreak ran deep. But in their place now blossomed a resolve to live openly, honestly, and lovingly lessons she intended to pass on to her daughter. No wealth could rival that sort of freedom. Betrayal at the hands of the one who once pledged undying devotion can scorch every certainty from your life. Elena discovered this truth when a single moment at the gym unraveled the fairy tale future she imagined. forcing her to confront harsh realities hidden beneath wealth and status. Yet, in letting go of illusions, she claimed a deeper power, the drive to protect her child and redefine her own worth. Watching Maximilian's empire collapse under scandal was proof that karma follows us all. In her new life, Elena found freedom from deception and a fierce purpose in guiding her daughter forward. If her story moved you, if it stirred that spark of resilience in your own struggles, then please remember to like this video, share it with anyone who might need the reminder that hope triumphs, and subscribe for more dramatic tales that reveal life's raw and transformative power.